We are Madeline, Megan, Mike, and Tim, and today we'll be presenting our project entitled Tapping into Sustainability, Bolstering the Sanitation and Education Infrastructure of Schools in Rural Chad. So one of the central questions we've been considering during our Grand Challenge course is whether our planet has the ability to support a population of as many as 11 billion people, and if so, what kinds of social and environmental developments will be necessary in order to increase its carrying capacity. And although it might seem kind of obvious, just in finding sustainable ways to ensure that people have both access to basic resources like food, water, and shelter, as well as a means of socioeconomic stability, will go a long way in improving the quality of life of future generations. So for our project, we wanted to focus on providing these two elements in Chad, a nation with a lot of potential for growth and that faces a variety of humanitarian and environmental challenges, which you can see here, and that we'll discuss in more detail later. More specifically, our project focuses on primary schools in Chad, many of which lack both an improved source of drinking water and sanitation facilities. As a potential solution to these problems, we propose the installation of water taps and hand washing stations in primary schools on the outskirts of N'Djamena, the capital of Chad. And these facilities will be powered by solar energy and accompanied by a sanitation education program for students. Our hope is that these initiatives will encourage progress towards several of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, namely number 4, education, and number 6, clean water and sanitation.
Water is critical for a sustainable community, and especially for rural off-the-grid communities in developing countries. For a dry, landlocked country such as Chad, a safe, reliable water source is needed, and that is found in the aquifer underneath Northern Africa. The water is needed for drinking and cooking and also for sanitation and personal hygiene. We were looking at solar powered pumping distribution of the groundwater, which has shown effective in various demonstration projects in Northern Africa, which range from a farmer-based to a community-based system. Looking at our school-based water kiosk, which involves and empowers the whole community. The ownership of the success improves community well-being, and the innovation here would be basically the community taking part in the planning, installation, and the maintenance and operation of the system. In order to deter overuse of these multinational community water resource, regional monitoring and management is necessary. And today, satellite remote sensing is able to monitor the aquifer for depletion. And there are international agencies that can become involved in setting up a regional management of that resource so that nobody's taking more than they need.
So the installation of these facilities is a good start, but just their presence alone won't automatically ensure that safer sanitation and hygiene practices will be adopted throughout the community. And in fact, there's been some troubling evidence from past rural water supply projects in Bolivia, Peru, and Ghana that community buy-in for these kinds of projects can be quite low unless there's a defined model for how to run and manage them. So our project will need to lay out exactly who can use the school-based water supply, as well as how and when. And to do this, we draw on several of Elinor Ostrom's design principles for commons management, although we organize them into a 3-pronged model that's more appropriate for our own project in Chad. The first of these 3 major prongs is community mobilization and awareness, and it basically entails that all individuals who use the facilities have a say in the rules that govern them. The second pillar is the establishment of clear boundaries, both for the resource itself and its users. And this will be especially important since the project is completely housed on the grounds of the primary schools. So it'll be really important to make sure that this doesn't serve as a distraction to more typical educational goals. To enforce these boundaries, we'll also need the third element, which involves a regulatory committee tasked with monitoring the facilities. We envision a committee with a few spots for students and teachers, 1 spot for a trained sanitation professional, and several rotating positions for community members. And our hope is that this structure will be rigid enough to ensure the day-to-day upkeep of the water supply, but also flexible enough to accommodate the evolution of the project over time.
The question remains, why sanitation education? Well, we know that a correlation exists between school attendance and success, and that sanitation related maladies, particularly diarrheal diseases like cholera, are the leading causes of student absenteeism. There's some fantastic statistics regarding the implementation of sanitation education in schools and an associated decrease in the frequency of viral and bacterial infections, thus increased student attendance. Our education model will be supported by 3 pillars, including the science of human behavior, an active learning model, and 21st century skills. The human behavior element is necessary due to a lack of central infrastructure in developing countries, necessitating personal obligation for betterment of self and community, goal setting, and a culturally appropriate basis in elements such as language and art. Active learning will augment individual discovery and collaboration, and 21st century skills will be implemented to build necessary computer literacy. The first of the 2 primary components is a technology-based active learning, including digital games, quizzes, and coloring pages using secondhand computers from World Computer Exchange. The second component is an extracurricular pump management program involving students in the betterment of themselves and the community.
This project is relevant to the world in many ways. Not only does it address multiple of the Sustainable Development Goals organized by the United Nations, but it also should improve other aspects of life in the community. By placing the water pumps in schools and educating the community about sanitation, many risks and costs associated with the lack of access to these resources will be decreased. The close proximity of the pumps will decrease the amount of time family members spend collecting water and the number of injuries endured from water collection. Increased sanitation practices should also decrease the prevalence of diarrheal diseases like cholera, seen in many rural communities, which is transferred through unsanitary water conditions. By providing education through technology, our project's team will be helping children and the community see long-term benefits of all sorts. Technology in schools has been shown to improve engagement and therefore increase the quality of learning. With this increased quality of learning, the community should acquire more knowledge that can be put forward to bettering the community in the future. For this particular project, Chad is an ideal location due to its low rankings on the Sustainable Development Index and the Lake Chad crisis, where the main water source of the region is shrinking due to global climate change. This is not only causing a decrease in the natural resource, but also a humanitarian crisis over the limited access and people fighting over who gets what. Furthermore, the country's government has shut down internet access, which is another reason why the technology aspect will be important. All in all, the hope is that by implementing this project in Chad, we will improve its status with regards to the SDGs and improve the overall quality of life for the community members.
To conclude, the school-centric approach, both in terms of the water supply and community sanitation education, provides a physical boundary necessary for effective commons management in a setting that is familiar and accessible yet different from general community-centered water models. Analytical measures of success include increased access to safe drinking water, increased sanitation facilities in primary schools, increased educational attainment, and with that, decreased absenteeism, and decreased prevalence of waterborne diseases. Due to the generality of the model, it can be applied to other regions of Chad, as well as other countries impacted by the Lake Chad crisis, including Cameroon, Niger, and Nigeria, to increase access to both education and sanitation, which are 2 components of success and well-being across Central Africa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.